I-team investigation involving Donald Trump's civil fraud case. A high-profile New York real estate lawyer whose law license was once suspended said that he approached the judge presiding over the case to offer unsolicited advice about a law at issue in the case.
New York's judicial oversight body has launched an investigation into that alleged interaction. The attorney made the claim during an interview with Chief Government Affairs reporter Melissa Russo on the day Judge Arthur Engoron issued his decision to fine the former president $454 million for falsely inflating the value of his assets. And Melissa now joins us in the newsroom with more. Melissa.
Adam and Gilma, Judge Engoron says he was, quote, wholly uninfluenced by the lawyer. His name is Adam Lightman Bailey. He's known for his legal expertise and his aggressive style, which has resulted in big wins, but also landed him on the wrong side of legal ethics rules. During our interview back in February, Bailey told me he believed the law should not be used to impose huge penalties on Trump. And then he told me that he took those views straight to Judge Engoron.
I don't think this judge is applying the law properly, and I'm a big fan of this judge.
High-profile real estate attorney Adam Lightman Bailey told us he was so concerned about how the law was being applied in the Trump civil fraud case.
I saw him in the corner, and I told my clients I need to go.
He says he walked up to Judge Arthur Engoron in the courthouse to offer his advice.
I actually had the ability to speak to him 3 weeks ago. I wanted him to know what I think and why, because I really wanted to get it right.
That interview with News 4 was on February 16th. Judge Engoron's decision was due in 2 hours. We had asked Bailey for his expert analysis on the penalties Trump could face for fraudulently inflating the value of his assets. Bailey had been widely quoted in national news stories on the case. Bailey, who said he is no fan of Trump, was not involved in the civil case and is not connected to any of the 4 separate criminal cases against the former president. He said he knows the judge from having appeared before him as a litigant hundreds of times. Bailey said he explained to the judge his view that a fraud statute at issue in the case was not intended to be used to shut down a major company, especially in a case without clear victims. Bailey said such a ruling would hurt New York's economy. Judge Engoron had rejected a similar argument raised by the Trump team in court.
I explained to him my small-time law for small-time cases. He had a lot of questions, about certain cases. We went over it.
News 4 asked a spokesman for Judge Engoron whether the judge had spoken with Bailey about any legal issues surrounding the Trump civil fraud matter and whether the alleged interaction had been appropriate. The response? No ex parte conversation concerning this matter occurred between Justice Engoron and Mr. Bailey or any other person. The decision Justice Engoron issued February 16th was his alone, was deeply considered, and was wholly uninfluenced by this individual, said Al Baker, a spokesman for the New York State Office of Court Administration, in a written statement. In legalese, the term ex parte describes a communication between a party or their legal counsel and a judge about a pending case without all the parties present. Interactions with judges about their pending cases outside of official courtroom proceedings are governed by state legal conduct rules, which say a judge shall not initiate, permit, or consider ex parte communications, or consider other communications made to the judge outside the presence of the parties or their lawyers. The rules do allow an exception to obtain the advice of a disinterested expert on the law if a judge gives notice to the parties in the case and gives them the opportunity to respond. The New York State Commission on Judicial Conduct will now consider whether the rules were violated in this instance, according to sources familiar with the matter.
The judge never provided any notice that these communications took place.
Christopher Kise, a member of the Trump defense team, which has repeatedly criticized Judge Engoron's handling of the case, said if Bailey's claims are true, it casts doubt on the integrity of the process.
The code doesn't provide an exception for, well, this was a small conversation, or, well, it didn't really impact me, or, well, this wasn't really something that the judge, found significant. No, the code is very, very clear.
Alan Shankman served as a presiding appellate court justice in New York and teaches legal ethics at Pace Law School. He says he has questions about Bailey's account, but believes in a case as consequential as the Trump civil fraud matter, if Bailey's allegation is true, it would have been prudent for Judge Engoron to disclose the interaction to both parties, saying if there's any substantive dialogue about the law in a pending case, it should be disclosed. During a second on-camera interview with News 4, Bailey stood by his account, but said he didn't think he or the judge had done anything wrong. Bailey said they only spoke about the law.
We didn't even mention the word Donald Trump.
But it was obvious that your input was related to this case when you talked to him, right?
Well, obviously we weren't talking about the Mets.
If a lawyer makes the claims of the sort that Mr. Bailey is making in the course of a recorded television interview, the media is right to pursue it, to try to get to the bottom of this.
Fordham University law and ethics professor Bruce Green reviewed Bailey's claims and the court's statement for News 4. He said it's not against the rules for judges and lawyers to talk about the law in the abstract, saying judges don't have to live in a bubble, and whether a judge's hallway conversation with a lawyer is permissible or impermissible depends on the conversation. Federal and state records show Bailey's law license was suspended for 4 months in 2019 after he made false and inappropriate statements to litigants in 2 cases. According to court transcripts, Bailey told a tenant on the opposing side of a case that they should, quote, just kill themselves. Bailey later apologized through an attorney.
This is a treatise on real estate law.
Bailey is also known for an encyclopedic knowledge of real estate law. He's co-authored voluminous textbooks and for decades has offered expert advice in the New York Times' Ask Real Estate column. His firm's website lists 26 lawyers and clients, including insurance firms, lenders, and luxury co-op boards. In one widely publicized case, Bailey won a settlement after suing the Trump condominium in Soho for inflating the value of their properties. New York's rules of professional conduct say lawyers should not state or imply an ability to improperly influence a judge. Since February, both Bailey and the judge's spokesman have stopped responding to NBC New York's questions, declining to provide details that might shed light on the disparity between Bailey's account of a dialogue and the judge's written denial. The Commission on Judicial Conduct investigates alleged improprieties involving state judges. Of nearly 3,000 complaints filed in 2023, only about 200 resulted in an investigation, according to the Commission's data. About 1 in 4 complaints resulted in a finding of wrongdoing, with consequences ranging from confidential letters of caution to a judge vacating the bench. The Commission's investigations are conducted in secret and can take anywhere from months to more than a year, according to recent annual reports.
A spokeswoman for Attorney General Letitia James, who brought and won the civil case against Trump, declined to comment on Bailey's claims. Meanwhile, Trump lawyer Christopher Kise said he's not sure yet what steps his team might take to address their concerns about Bailey's claims. Gilma and Adam?
Okay, we know you'll stay on top of it should that change. Melissa, thank you.